Today we're going to look at a game from the American part of ESL ONE Birmingham, a group stage game between Quincy crew and Evil Geniuses, and we're going to look at SVG's Enchantress and see what makes this hero such a strong position 5 support in the current pro game meta.
Lessons that cannot be unlearned.
So if we look at pop win rates, Enchantress is decidedly below the average. Not terrible, but not particularly good win rate. But the higher you go in skill level, the stronger Enchantress becomes. She's just a very, very solid lane support who can often win you the lane and secure your carry's game. And if you're playing a carry like Ursa, having a strong laning phase is essential. He's a kind of snowballing hero that if he's behind the lane, he's going to be behind in the game. But with a hero like Enchantress on his side, he has a much better chance of actually having a good game. And that's one of the reasons why Enchantress is so highly valued in recent times. So they're up against this Axe Klinks lane, which can be a bit tough. There's a lot of harassment coming out of this Klinks, and then of course Axe with his battle hunger is quite tough to deal with, and it's not very easy to get those last hits with Enchantress. She doesn't have the most base damage. So it's difficult to actually remove that battle hunger. So you can see he's already using a salve. He used his tango. He's bringing himself out extra tangos. This is something you usually want to do in this patch. Just start with not too much regen and then just bring out extra regen very early on in the courier. So he's now gotten the Hellbear Smasher, which is a very strong creep. You can definitely fight very easily with this. This guy has 1150 HP with level 1 enchant, so he's not easy to kill, and he only lives for 30 seconds anyway, so you're going to play very aggressively with this and sort of try to force the enemy to go into this. So he's able to really do some good damage to Klinks. I'm not sure why Klinks isn't just death pacting is, but I guess he's saving the death pact for the next creep, which is going to come here, and Enchantress being quite lucky here with the Setter Tormentor, one of the strongest creeps at level 1. So this has the Hadouken ability, which does so much damage. He hits both of the heroes, that's 160 damage each. But of course Klinks now can just eat this, but it's in a 90 seconds cooldown, so you can't do this too often as Klinks. So it's important not to be too afraid of being countered by Klinks. Yes, I guess Klinks is good here and so on, but he only has his ability every 90 seconds, and now they can just run him down thanks to that slow from the Setter Banisher and from Enchantress herself. There's some very powerful slows. Ursa is able to just run him down and secure first blood here for SVG, and just getting that kill in slightly before the Nature's Prophet dies in the bottom lane, so that's very nice. And a nice infusion of gold, which is just immediately invested into completing the buckler, which is important against this Klinks lane with all the armor reduction, as well as the Sage's Mask, just a really efficient early game item, which later is going to be able to be turned into a Vlad's, but for now it's just a really strong mana regen item. And Axe is pulling his wave, and Yavar is trying to stop him from that. Meanwhile, SVG is just soaking up this experience, trying to get some last hits in here. And yeah, Bulba on its Axe is eventually going to die. So that's a kill, but of course it's not necessarily worth it for the Axe. Sorry, for the Ursa, because he lost so much XP. But of course also this XP is going towards Enchantress, so it's not like their team is losing XP, only the carry is. So I guess sort of securing some experience for your support can be nice as well, especially a hero like Enchantress, which is relatively level hungry, because you want to get those extra levels in enchant up as soon as possible so you can get those stronger creeps, and most importantly creeps that last for longer, because level 1 it only lasts for 30 seconds. That doesn't give you very much time to really use the power of one of these creeps, but with higher levels, 60 seconds, that's a lot more time to actually get things done. So the runes are coming up, and rather than fight for this rune, Enchantress, very smart, just goes for this rune, because you can secure the rune and at the same time also get one of those creeps. So very nice multitasking here, using doing multiple things at once. And now with this fairly strong creep, she can always just win any sort of straight up fight, because this Wobbling Ripper actually has a lot of DPS. This is also hero damage, so it does full damage to heroes, rather than normal damage as you would maybe expect from a melee creep. But all the big creeps have hero damage, and also has this tornado ability, which does a decent amount of magic damage. So if this tornado is coming for you, all the axe really can do is run away, because I mean it doesn't do a huge amount of damage, but still it's too much damage if the tornado is right on top of you that you just have to run, and so it's causing some reasonable disruption. Not getting a lot of damage done though, but now she has a new creep here, so that's the way you want to play as Enchantress. You can't get too attached to any one creep because they're only going to be with you for a couple of seconds. So you just get the next best creep, and it's obviously really strong, but gets eaten by Clinks. But with this Usher coming in, they can maybe get a kill here, but also getting a retraction out of the Tusk. So it is 3 vs 3 engagement. Yawa finds the kill, and here you just want to stay as far away as possible to get more damage with impetus. Also, of course, important to note that Enchantress is quite squishy, especially if you're not leveling up heal. You don't have very much armor. Even with the buckling, she only has 6 armor at this stage of the game, and her HP pool is very, very low, so need to be careful not to be killed here. Ursa can be alone on his own for now. He's one lane now with all his kills he's gotten, so SVG is trying to make something happen in the mid lane, trying to chase down this Tusk, but it's not easy, and he's going to be able to get away. And now SVG himself is in trouble, but Enchantress is fairly fast, so it's not easy for TA to run her down, and with that Fairy Fire he manages to survive and takes over the next creep. Always important to just keep getting the next creep and next creep. And the Clinks is in the wrong neighborhood and easily gets taken off. And now SVG is so low that he can't do too much, but his creep is still alive and well, so he can stay around with his creep while his hero goes home to heal. So as SVG heads home, there's a fight over this double damage rune, and he uses his Evolving Ripper, and this gives lots of damage instances onto Tusk, so he gets more damage from Invoker's Cold Snap. TP's top now and tries to maybe get a kill on Axe here. It's only level 4, so no untouchable yet, and only 2 levels in impetus, but still with all these heroes rotating in there, they can easily gang up on this Axe and get a kill. Snowball is out here, but Axe is going to die, and now you just need to sort of stay away here a little bit, throw your impetuses and use it slow when it's available. It has a 20-second cooldown, so that's pretty long, but it's a fairly powerful slow, and with your impetus you can do a good amount of damage here, certainly by position 5 standards. Invoker trying to go for the kill on Tusk, but it's not going to be successful. But meanwhile the Clinks is going to be picked off, so really successful engagement here with all those rotations. And in the meantime, Nature's Prophet, who's had kind of a rough game so far, has been able to get some solo experience and solo farm at bottom. And now he's also joining the fight. Of course, one of the big advantages of Nature's Prophet is how mobile he is and how strong he is in the early game once he's a couple of levels into this Nature's Call. So they're just putting on a lot of pressure here, and they're trying to take down this tower. This is not the most important tower. Always, if you're pushing in the offlane, this tower you can take there is much more important. The thing about offlane towers is that they're very close together, not long distance at all here, compared to in the safe lane, that's a much bigger distance. So taking the tier 1 tower, not too big of a deal. Even with just tier 2 tower up, this area, this triangle area, is still fairly safe. So not the biggest deal taking that tower down, but of course you can take every bit of map control you can get. So the item build SSG is going for here is to max out Enchant, and Impetus second, and just ignore Nature's Attendance. And the reason for that is that Enchant is just an ability that scales really well. It just helps a lot to have those creeps for longer durations, as well as the tremendous amount of bonus damage you get on those creeps. You can get 70 bonus damage and 1200 bonus bonus HP on max level. So this is an ability that scales really well. Also the slow it goes all the way up to 6 seconds. 6 seconds of 55% movement slow is also quite powerful. So it's a really strong ability, and of course when you max early, because that's when the creeps shine the most. And then Impetus just does a lot of damage and also scales up quite well, especially since also the cooldown is reduced here. So of course Nature's Attendance is also a really strong ability, but it's just a really defensive ability, and doesn't allow you to really get that much done because it's so expensive in terms of mana, because you have already these other two expensive abilities, or at least Impetus is very expensive, Enchant not so much. So Impetus is like an auto cast that at max level you can chew through your mana pool very quickly, and you don't really have mana to spare, so it makes sense to just confine yourself to two abilities, and these two are just too powerful to pass up. So Nature's Attendance gets left on the chopping block, and in this fight again you just try to stay in the outskirts of the fight, stay as far away as possible, and chuck out those spears, and that's going to be successful with all the pushing power that comes out of this lineup. Nature's Prophet, of course, really strong hero at this stage of the game, as is Ursa, and now they're just heading right into the Roshan pit. They do a lot of Roche damage here with Ursa, obviously. Alpha Wolf also helping out as is the Nature's Prophet. Also has a Blightstone. You can tank here a little bit with Enchantress, but without the heal you can't really tank this permanently. But tanking it a little bit is good enough, and this allows the Ursa to finish this off. Being very careful, you only send in 2 units at once, so the Roshan doesn't use his clap ability. And now they've secured the Aegis and have a nice little lead of 2k. So SSG has opted to go for Tranquil Boots, which are quite strong on position 5 Enchantress, because you're not going to have Nature's Attendance for a long time. The extra healing is actually quite nice, as well as the movement speed is great. And also it's just a really cheap upgrade to your boots. With the cost reductions to Ring of Region, this item is now less than 500 gold, upgrading from boots, so quite efficient, and just gives you some more movement speed, some more region, and it's just so much cheaper than treads, which of course are also viable alternatives. But as plus 5 Enchantress, you're not relying on attack speed that much, so Tranquils is just fine, and allows you to have more gold to invest into other items. One, of course, really strong, helps you keep you alive. It's of course a strong item on any hero, but Enchantress, it really helps her with the mana problems in fights, and also just helps with her general squishiness because she has such low strength gain. And as she's joining this team, you first spend a stop at the bottom lane and convert one of those range creeps, and these are great for pushing and for farming. They do almost 100 damage, and it's piercing damage, which does 50% bonus damage against creeps. So this range creep does, you can just see how much damage it does, and just doing this, it's going to net you a good amount of gold. It's even better if you actually micro this creep and last hit with it, but even if you're busy with other things, you can just aim move these down the lane and push out the lane in a very low commitment fashion. If they kill this creep, it's just a creep, doesn't give too much gold and experience, and if they don't deal with this wave is definitely going to push in fairly rapidly. So always something to keep in mind. If you don't have any better creep, just get a range creep and just push down on the side lanes and get some map control that way. So because of their creep pushing on the lane, now they have to defend the bottom lane, and this gives space for Nature's Prophet to push the top lane, and this way they can always take favorable engagements. Now with the Nature's Prophet joining them, and they're going here behind the tower. SG is a bit too far forward here and gets picked off, but they also kill the axe here in this engagement, so They're trading in position 5 for position 3, which is great. And in the meantime, top wave is pushing in with the treants from Nature's Prophet. So the way they're playing this, pushing both the side lanes with those summons and control creeps, just allows them, whenever they're able to get a victory in a fight, they can easily take objectives. Whereas the enemies, even if EG kill Quincy crew here in their jungle, they don't have any waves pushed in. So by the time they get to any of the towers, most of the heroes will be respawning anyway. So this just creates a situation where any fight that Quincy crew win leads to objective, but not vice versa. SG is now going for a Ghost Scepter, which is great in this particular game because there's so much physical damage coming out of the Radiant lineup. There's the TA, obviously, you can easily burst if you don't have a defensive item like Ghost Scepter. There's a lot of physical damage coming out of Tusk, out of Clinks, even though these are supports. They can still deal a good amount of physical damage. So this is a great item. Only real magical damage in this lineup is going to be the Arteezy Leshrac here, which is of course a lot of damage, but it's only one hero, so Ghost Scepter is a very important item here. And then of course later on he's going to go for Vlad's with his Buckler and Basilius already online here. These are very efficient items on their own, so you don't need to convert them into Vlad's right away. You can just keep them around for a while. And then later on, Bassi is a nice upgrade, especially since Bassi is really an item that comes into its own a bit later in the game. And it's just great to have that in the mid to late game on one of your supports. And just by opening up with the Ghost Scepter first, you just allow yourself to stay alive. And then later on, when you have a little bit of spare gold, you can upgrade those into Vlad's. One thing that I guess is a bit missing on the Quincy crew team here is anything against the magic damage that Arteezy dishes out. Now Arteezy isn't having the best game here, but he's still the most farmed hero on EG. And they don't have any sort of pipe, they don't have a Glimmer Cape, anything like that. And we have instead a Crimson Guard on Nature's Prophet. And I think actually going for a pipe would be better here in this game. I guess the reasoning here behind Crimson Guard is that they have so much physical damage, which is true, but it's mostly physical damage in like large chunks. TA does a lot of physical damage, yes, but it's a lot of damage per hit. She doesn't actually have that many hits. And the Crimson Guard is best against lots of different physical damage instances, as comes out from like summon-based heroes like Lycan or Visage, and it's also good against illusion heroes, obviously, or just against heroes that have a huge amount of attack speed, such as Wind Ranger. But against TA it's not that great, and against Clinks it's great against him, Clinks himself, but it doesn't actually work against the Burning Army Skeletons. Damage bug is not applied to them, so I would have much rather have seen a pipe here. It's only countering one hero really, but it's the enemy carry, so it's definitely worth an item slot here. As for the other heroes, we see Earthshaker, of course, going for his Blink Dagger and then following up with a Yules, also a nice defensive item, save himself from the enemy heroes. And meanwhile, in this fight here, you see SVG obviously always trying to stay at distance and chuck out those impetuses and stay alive. And now that he has 2 levels in Untouchable, he's not too afraid of those right clickers, but of course he still has to watch out for the magic damage from Arteezy. And we see this TA being cornered, gets the kill in here on the Invoker, but dies herself. So a very bloody, hard-fought battle here with 2 people surviving on Quincy crew and 1 on EG, so a minor victory here for our boys. Then on Ursa we have a Saint Yasha, which is a great anti-kiting item. Also just the status resistance is quite important here against the disable that the enemy team have. And then of course going for the characteristic Abyssal Blade. Oftentimes you just see Ursa just going Abyssal Blade right away and skipping an item like Ancient Yasha. I guess it's an item that helps you farm a bit more, helps you not get kited, so I guess it makes sense in this kind of game. Then on Nature's Prophet we have of course Treads and Blade Mail, very standard items on Nature's Prophet, as well as on all these kind of brawly heroes. And then the aforementioned Crimson Guard, of course. And now building into an AC, which is of course a great aura item to get in the mid game, and also going to help out a little bit against all the minus armor that EG's lineup have. I haven't talked about Invoker yet, so let's go through his item quickly. Phase Boots, very standard on Crossvex Invoker, as is the Spirit Vessel. And then going for Solar Crest, which is a really good utility item, especially in combination with a hero like Ursa, who needs to be in the front, and therefore is really appreciative of the extra armor, as well as the extra movement speed, so it doesn't get kited as easily. And of course it's also the attack speed. You don't really need the attack speed when you have overpower, but between overpowers, extra attack speed helps a lot. So just being able to apply that to your frontliner is great, especially against this minus armor lineup that EG are running. Quincy crew see a Phantom Assassin farming rather aggressively here, so they go on her and gonna chase her with the Edge Prophet also TPing in, but EG is there, they want to fight, and a big brawl breaks out. SVG once again staying here on the outskirts of the fight and using his Nature's Attendants very proactively. If you get gone on, oftentimes you just get bursted, but if you just use your Nature's Attendants right away, that's going to help. And it's often just it's going to be some injured hero near you, so it's not usually a waste, and you'd rather activate this sooner rather than later. So they have an overwhelming victory here in this fight, and the mid lane is pushing in, so of course they want to try to push the high ground. As usually not taking over a creep here yet. He takes over this range creep. I think you should rather take the melee creep, because that can tank more tower shots here, and also it's going to do more damage to structures. The range creep is great against other creeps, but the problem is more the structures, not the creeps, so melee creep would be a better option here. But either way, they can take down this tower very easily, and now working on that Rax. The enemy TA still is a couple seconds away, and so it's going to be a clean Rax kill. And also staying for the ranged Rax, which is maybe a little bit greedy, but they're very far ahead, so they can afford to do this. And of course Ursa is a pretty durable frontliner with all the support that can come out towards him, with the Crimson Guard and the Solar Crest and so on. So this is not too big of a risk, and now they even find a double damage, which they can hopefully use to win another fight. So they smoke with the double damage, and they find a TA who is trying to farm the triangle here, thanks to this nice ward here, which is in a really good position. This is not a ward that's terribly likely to be dewarded, and it still sees a lot, still sees definitely when someone is farming the triangle, so a very valuable ward here. And now we see this Vlad's completed, and before that you also went for a Force Staff, which of course is a really good support item, and later on it's going to build into that Hurricane Pike, which of course is one of the staples of Enchantress. Once again we see this wave being pushed out, this time by the Ghost Creep. The Ghost Creep is the only piercing damage creep that does even more than the regular range creep. But now she's taking another range creep here, and it's going to push the mid lane, since Ursa's already pushing top lane. And you just want to push in as many lanes as possible. And now like all the lanes are pushing in, the enemy are hemmed into their base, and now is the time when you put up wards like this. This is a ward that's not very likely to be dewarded. Everyone is going to deward this spot, but this one is out of range, and it still tells you when the enemy are leaving their base. So you can see them walking up here, you can see them walking into the lane here, and this is going to set up to gank heroes that are leaving the base. And this is the kind of wards you want to place when you're far ahead and the enemy are sort of cooped up in their own base. Roshan is back up, so of course that's going to go quite quickly with the Invoker not even deigning to use a Solar Crest here. So G's being picked up. We have a nice Refresher Shard on Earthshaker for the double Echo Slam, and then Enchantress is just sort of staying in the back lines. She has now Enchanted Quiver, which is a really strong item in general, just adds a lot of DPS on any kind of hero, any kind of ranged hero. And as Enchantress, you have the added bonus damage of having the longer range attack with the Impetus. And now they're just sieging this high ground. Yawa, of course, being the only one in the front line, and everyone else kind of staying back and backing him up, as it should be. And now also the Hurricane Pike is online, so of course just a really strong item on Enchantress. It's one of the standards of Enchantress play. And just getting away from the Leshrac, and now again just staying here far away from enemy heroes, throwing out the spears and trying to stay alive. So Enchantress is a very straightforward hero in a lot of these fights. It's a bit, you have a lot of options in the early game with all those creeps, and playing the early game correctly is quite complicated, but later on everything is very straightforward, and so they just take this nice mid-game lead they have and close out the game before any of the enemy heroes can really overtake them. Also, of course, Ursa and Quaslex Invoker are not that great in the late game, nor is Nature's Prophet, so it's a nice mid-game lineup that's perfect for the current high action, high tempo kind of patch. And Quincy crew secure their victory over EG and also win the other game against them for a 2-0 victory in the group stage. So we can see SVG just doing really well in this game, contributing a lot to his team. Going 8-3 and 23 on a position 5 is quite impressive. Also, his farm is really good. Like, he's as farmed as the enemy mid laner. So just a really dominant game from Quincy crew. And just the mid-game strength of all these heroes combined was just too much for EG. Like, all these heroes just really, really strong in the mid-game. And Enchantress just fits in really well into those pro lineups. In pop games, especially low-level pop games, she's a bit weaker because she tends to fall off because she doesn't farm as well as other heroes. You can farm reasonably well with those range creeps, but if you're in a less organized environment, the mid-game strength of Enchantress is not going to be utilized as well. But in pro games, she's definitely a very valuable hero, and she's not like one of the tip-top meta heroes, but she's definitely a very solid support in this meta. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, please join the fold by subscribing and ringing the bell. And all is willing, I will see you next time.